So you want to become a full-time photographer, but you don't have a social media presence or a following on social media. That is totally okay. I've been a photographer since 2005 and have been full-time as a photographer probably since around 2006. And things have ebbed and flowed in my photography career. There are definitely some other things that I do that I earn income from, as well as YouTube. But becoming a full-time photographer can vary depending on what your goals are. And so we're going to talk about what it takes to become a professional photographer and how you can do that without having a social media following. Now, social media following definitely can help because those are people that follow your work and your photography. And as of course you have more people following you, there are more people that are exposed to your work. But if you don't have that, that's not a stumbling block at all. So we're going to talk about how to build a photography business and not have to rely on social media. So first of all, you need to define what full-time really means to you. Full-time, you might think is 40 hours a week, but that's an awful lot of shooting photos and editing photos. I consider a full-time photographer as someone who earns enough from their photography to cover their monthly expenses. And of course, there's more money that you can make on top of monthly expenses, and that can come from a variety of different things. So for me, that means I need to determine how much I need to make in the first place. What are my base monthly expenses, and how much would I have to make from my photography in order to get to that place? Because this gives us a goal to set so that we know when full-time really is full-time and it's not part-time anymore. So the first thing you need to do is identify what your monthly expenses are and how much you need to make from photography in order to cover those things. Now, when I look at a lot of photographers that seem to be relatively popular in different areas, not many of them have big social media followings. Yes, there are those photographers that we see that have big social media followings and they're shooting all these events and all of that stuff. But even my social media account for my photography, which I rarely post to because I forget and I don't have time, and then I do a bunch of posts that catch me up for the year, I don't have a lot of following on my social media account. I spend more time focusing on the social media accounts for my YouTube channels than I do for my photography. So I definitely don't get really much business at all from my social media accounts. And that's okay. There's a lot of different ways that you can get business, and social media is just a proof that you're actually doing the work, and people following you is people following and appreciating your work. And as a photographer, especially one that's trying to target people in a specific area, maybe it's the town or city that you live in, that requires networking and getting your name out there. Like, people can go and find pretty pictures anywhere on social media. So why would they choose your pictures? Well, it's because of you as the photographer. If they get to know you or they know about you, then they'll follow your work. And so it's pretty hard for a photographer to build a following just based off of their photography. So don't think that you need to have that. Most photographers don't have a very big social media following. Secondly, most photographers don't get a lot of leads from their social media as well. They might be posting to social media, have a few hundred followers or something like that, but they're not getting a lot of leads from social media. Because as you know, social media is primarily companies trying to get your attention, trying to get you to buy. And so when we throw our offer into the mix, it's just yet another piece of noise for the users. It doesn't often result in anything that turns into customers, especially if you don't have a relationship with your followers where that's expected, that you're going to be putting out asks for business or you're going to be putting out promotions or something like that. And you're in a type of photography where you get repetitive business, such as family portraits or something that people usually do once a year, once every other year. So I have 4 steps that are going to take you as a photographer with little or no social media following and grow an actual business. Step 1 is making sure that you've perfected your photography. Obviously, if you're wanting to start a photography business, if you're wanting to go full-time or take what you're doing right now and go full-time, you need to be capable and flexible as a photographer. The capability is knowing your equipment and how to use it and being able to capture images that people want and love, that you're able to tell a story with those images, that you're able to produce images that people desire. You are a capable photographer. The second is flexible, being a flexible photographer. Lots of things change, especially if you're dealing with people. Things change, situations change, weather changes, everything changes. People don't show up, and you need to be a flexible photographer that can adapt and react to different situations. I often, when dealing with people, find myself at locations that don't have what I was told it would have, or the weather is different, or something is odd, and I have to change what we're doing. And my subjects that I'm going to be photographing don't need that added stress put on them. They already know that they're going to need to perform for the photos, that they're going to need to smile and look their best. They're already maybe a little bit nervous, and I don't want to put that on them. And so the more that I can absorb based off of my experience, I can produce a good environment for them, even if that environment is changing. That flexibility goes a long way. And they'll tell other people, like, we showed up and the place was a mess, so we had to go over to this other place, and the photographer found a spot within seconds and got amazing photos, and it was just so cool. It was so stress-free. They'll talk about you like that to their friends when they're explaining the situation as it went down to get the photos that they hired you to take. And the last part of that is confidence. If you maintain confidence even in situations where things are maybe falling apart or not going exactly as you had planned, you're going to maintain that homeostasis with your clients. And in turn, they're going to have confidence in you and your abilities to capture the images that they hired you to capture. The second step is productizing your photography. A lot of times we don't know what to charge as photographers. People ask, what do you charge? And you say, well, for how long or for what? And you ask all these questions, and it leads the person to believe that they don't know what you charge, or they think that you're trying to figure out if you can charge them a lot, and maybe that's a different price than they would have given somebody else. And so when you productize your photography, even though that kind of puts you into packages or puts you into some sort of services that you offer, it gives you the ability to hand something to somebody with confidence and say, here's what I charge based off of this criteria. And so you really do need to productize your photography by putting it into packages. And those packages could include the amount of time that you spend taking pictures, the amount of pictures that you're going to edit for them, the amount of prints that you might print for them, whether it be the photography itself or the services that are provided, or the products that come after the photography is completed. All of those things built into some sort of a package. And of course, everything is flexible because not everything fits every single person. There's add-ons. You can go that route of adding things on and having specific add-ons that people can choose from. But when you charge simply for the amount of time that you're going to be taking pictures, that doesn't factor in the amount of time that you're going to spend editing and doing all of the additional work. And so when you try to factor that into an hourly rate, that hourly rate sounds really expensive because it's not really an hourly rate. It's the hourly rate that you're going to charge them for an hour of photography, but it also includes all these other services, and that's when it starts to sound expensive to everybody. So when you put it into packages and list out all the things that are included in the package, it gives your customers the ability to see everything that's included there, and it makes more sense. That's the way we are used to buying services from other people. And you'll also want to develop your customer experience. What does it look like for the customer from the point in which they first contact you to the last touch point that you have with them after they're done doing business with you, and even the follow-up that you might have for them along the way as you hope to bring them back in as a customer for a second, third, fourth, fifth time down the road. What does that customer experience look like? I know for me, it has varied depending on the type of photography that I'm doing. It's a different experience for the customer when I was shooting weddings than when I'm shooting product photography for businesses. When I was shooting weddings, it was an initial meeting, and we'd get together and talk about their wedding, and we'd talk about the flow of their wedding and different aspects of it. And so there was a lot of consultation up front where I'm trying to learn from them about what they're wanting and what their expectations are so that I can make sure that I'm able to deliver on those expectations on their wedding day. Whereas with product photography, usually there's products that they want photos of. They may have seen something that another company has done and they want to mimic that or glean from that. And so the whole conversation is different. They don't want to spend a whole bunch of time talking. They want to be able to have an end result that looks a certain way, and it's much easier to communicate that. And there aren't as many touch points required throughout the process because a wedding may book you a year in advance, whereas product photography, they're going to give you the product to take the pictures of, and you might be through with that entire experience within a couple of weeks and handing the files off to your client. So develop a customer experience that makes sense based on your personality, the way you interact with people, and the way that you believe your customer would want to be treated through the process. Number 3 is marketing selling your photography. This is where maybe social media could make that a little bit easier, but it's also very time consuming. And since we're talking about not having had a social media following, there are some things that you're going to need and to make sure that you have dialed in pretty well so that you look professional and so that customers feel that they can trust you. And that number one thing is a website. A website is going to be probably the first thing that a customer looks at when they are trying to decide whether to choose you. And we look at websites and we judge a business based on the quality of their website. If their website looks kind of rinky-dink and it's hard to navigate, they're communicating maybe too much about themselves and not communicating about their customer, then it could be a little bit of a turnoff for the potential customer and they can end up going and looking for an alternative. So you really want to spend time crafting your website and making sure that it really shows off your work well, but you're also communicating the fact that you are creating images for whomever, whatever your customer is. If you're a portrait photographer, you shoot high school senior portraits, weddings, and different stuff like that, then you need to communicate in that way. And that communication needs to exude the confidence that we talked about earlier. Professional photography has been around long enough that most people know that they are trusting a photographer when they hire them and hoping that that photographer can deliver images that look like the other images that they've created for other people. Everybody's heard of experiences where said photographer that they ended up hiring was not able to deliver images that look like the ones that are on their website. And that leads to a broken customer experience. So we want to make sure that we are exuding confidence from the very beginning, making sure that we have testimonials on our website. You have the opportunity to even shoot a couple of video testimonials from past clients to put on your website. That's great because then it's straight from their mouths and not just text that of course we can manipulate, and people like to see live testimonials. And make sure that you're showcasing your images. But don't focus too much on yourself as the photographer. Of course, that is very important. People want to hire somebody that they feel like they can identify with and that they would like, especially if you're doing weddings or portraits. That is more intimate, and people want to hire a photographer that they're going to get along with. But I've seen some photographers' websites where all they talk about is themselves, and they don't talk about their customer or their client at all. And for me, like, I'm shooting images for somebody. Like, I want to capture beautiful images and give them to somebody so that they can enjoy them for the rest of their lives. That's not about me. I mean, maybe it is a little bit because I really desire to create that for them. But, it's not what I want to communicate. What I want to communicate is my confidence that comes from experience, knowing that I can capture these images because of my past experience, and even showcase and share a few experiences that I've had where I've had to think outside of the box because the situation's changed. And of course, I can tell many more of those stories to my clients when I end up meeting them. So your website also needs to have a way for you to collect leads from your customers. You could put your phone number on there and sometimes people will call you, but a lot of times they're price shopping, especially if you don't have your prices listed on your website, and they're going to fill out a form wanting to know how much you charge. There were definitely times in the past when I didn't put my prices on the website, and that led to me getting a lot of email inquiries. Now I list my prices on the website, so when I do get an email, people have already seen my pricing and they know what to expect. The next thing you should have is social media, because people are going to go down that rabbit hole and look at some of your work. They may not have found you there because it's getting so much harder for people to find you as a business, you as a photographer on social media, but they may jump from your website over to your social media just to see some of the things that you're posting. So it is important that you do have social media, even if you don't have a very big following there. Make sure that you're posting from time to time, that you're updating your social media, that if you have a link in your social media profile, it's not broken, that it goes to your website, and that if people are sending you messages through social media, that you respond to those messages. The next item is email and email marketing. When I get a lead from my website, when somebody emails me, I respond to that as soon as possible. So many times I have gotten a photography client because I responded quickly. I send an email back, maybe within a couple of hours. And then a few days later, I get a response and they'll tell me straight up, we emailed like 4 or 5 different photographers and you were the only one that responded. And that's great. I don't care. Like, if I'm the only one that responded, that's great. Hire me, pay my price and what I charge, and let's get started. I'm not bothered by that at all. And I know that sometimes I've gotten the job because I was the first one to respond or because I responded quickly and I had good communication. A lot of times people are worried about that. Is this person going to show up and take pictures and then I'm going to struggle to get pictures from them? Good communication starts with responding to emails quickly. Email marketing is also pretty important because it gives you the opportunity to communicate with your customers ongoing, and that's great for inviting them back in. You can produce a newsletter where you put out some thoughts on photography, maybe even a few little tips for people using their smartphones to get better photos. And then occasionally you can put out an offer to them, like if you're a portrait photographer, you do family portraits, when you do like a fall leaves portrait session or almond blossoms, different opportunities based on where you live. And those different seasons where photography seems to be a little bit more popular, family portraits closer to Christmas, stuff like that, when you might put out special offers. This gives you an email list in which you can mass email to and send out those offers. Posting those things on social media means that only a few people might see them, but with an email list and you email everybody, everybody's going to see that email, and everybody typically checks their email and responds to, deletes, takes action on each email that comes into their inbox. Cold outreach is another option. We all have friends and family, acquaintances, people that we'd worked with before, and we can reach out to these people to kind of kickstart our customer base and say to them, hey, I enjoy photography. It's been a thing that I've done for the longest time. I'm considering going full time with this, and here's what I'm offering. The holiday season's coming up, and I'm offering family portrait sessions at such and such cost, 30-minute sessions, and you get the digital files, and here's some other things that would be cool that I can order for you, and here's the price. Especially if it's already prefaced with the fact that they already have a relationship with you and they know that you're going to deliver on your promises. Asking them to be one of your first customers is probably an honor for them. So yes, I would love to be one of your first customers, and that's a great price, and so sign me up. And you get a bunch of initial customers based on the cold outreach that you have to people that you already know, which essentially isn't the definition of cold outreach. Cold outreach is reaching out to people that don't know you, but essentially these people didn't know you were going to reach out to them for photography. So it's cold outreach. But after you capture photos for these people that already knew you, they're going to want to share that. And they're going to say, hey, you remember Jared, right? He got into photography and he's starting to do it professionally. And here's the photos he took for us. They're going to talk about and brag on you to their friends and family, which will expand your business as those people contact you for services as well. Lastly is getting paid for your photography. There's a few things that you're going to need and make sure that you have dialed in well. Number one is an invoicing tool. You need to be able to send an invoice, a proper invoice, to your customers. Now, if you're just getting started, you can of course create an invoice using spreadsheet or something like that. Microsoft has Excel and their invoice templates and stuff like that in there. If you feel like you want something a little bit more professional that also allows for people to pay online, I've used FreshBooks for a long time, and I'll put a link to them down in the description below. FreshBooks allows you to bill your customers all electronically and they can pay online, and it's a real simple process, and it allows for subscription payments and lots of different things as well. And for the small price that it is every month to handle my bookkeeping and my invoicing, it's definitely well worth having all of that stuff managed in one place, and it looks really professional. After you get paid and you've concluded business, you definitely want to ask for a review, especially early on. You want those Google reviews, maybe even Yelp reviews if you're in a bigger area and a lot of people are using Yelp. And if you can get a video review, maybe sit them down and shoot a video or something like that of them talking about their experiences with you, that is even better. Those reviews can be used on your website. And then, of course, when we do Google search for photography, when we do Google search for pretty much anything, we're looking at reviews. And so we want to make sure that people can review us there. So you want to send them your Google business listing link so that they can go on there and review you. Make it as easy as possible for people to leave reviews. Next is getting repeat business. You definitely want to keep in touch with your customers and look for opportunities to do business with them again. When you're photographing them, ask about anniversaries. If it's a family portrait session, ask when their anniversary is. Ask about birthdays and stuff like that. And you don't have to ask in a way where you're like taking notes. If you're doing a family portrait session and just making conversation, you're talking to the parents, you're talking to the kids, and you might ask one of the kids, well, how old are you? Oh, I'm 13. Oh, when do you turn 14? Or, do you play any sports? And there's opportunities there, like that just through conversation that you're learning about different types of photography that you can shoot for them. Maybe they play on like an all-star travel baseball team, and you could have the opportunity to shoot some photos for them so that they can have photos of their baseball player. There's lots of opportunities that can come up just through conversation that give you the opportunity to get repeat business. And lastly, asking for referrals. You definitely want to ask for referrals if your customer has had a great experience and they seem relatively happy. You want to ask if they know anybody else that might be interested in your services, and you'll perfect how that goes over time. At the beginning, it might feel a little awkward. Like, do you have anybody else that might pay me for my photography? But over time, it will become part of the conversation flow that you have with people as you are delivering them their images and finalizing business with them. You can mention, that you have some openings, and do they know anybody that would be looking for that type of photography? Maybe all you've been doing is family portraits and you want to do high school seniors. Maybe that family has some high school kid, and you could say, hey, I don't know if you know, but I also do high school senior portraits. And so if you know any high school seniors, parents with high school seniors, definitely I would love to meet with them and do photos for them. And so you always want to be asking for referrals, because photography is a referral-based business, and you get a lot of business from word-of-mouth referrals, and word-of-mouth referrals are the best kind of referral that you can get. So I know that this video was a little bit long, but I hope you found a lot of ideas on how you can become a full-time photographer without having a social media following to begin with. If you want to learn more about starting photography as a side business, I have a course that is available linked down in the description below. I'll give you that course for half off because you made it all the way through my video. So check out that link in the description below and you'll get that course at half the price. If you're thinking about building your own website, I have a couple of free courses on building websites that you can check out also. So there's resources for getting you to that full-time photographer status that you're looking for. Definitely check out the links in the description below. Give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you in the next video.